Recognized globally as one of the world's top technology professionals for seaport modernization, Rich Ceci led major digital transformation initiatives for the ports of New York, New Jersey, and Virginia, and has consulted on many others in Europe, South America, and the Middle East. Rich currently holds the position of Senior Vice President of International Terminals, Port of Virginia. Ranked second on the Global Airport Innovation Power List's top 10, Sjoerd Blum is the Chief Information Officer for Schiphol International Airport, Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Blum is credited with the digital transformation of Schiphol, one of the world's busiest airports for both passengers and cargo. As Deputy Executive Assistant Commissioner of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency, John Wagner is responsible for technology-driven authentication of passengers and cargo at air, land, and seaport facilities. John has also led such initiatives with TSA PreCheck and Global Entry, and currently leads efforts today for biometric authentication technologies at major U.S. airports. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage CES Government's 2020 Critical Infrastructure Keynote Panel, Rich Ceci, Sjoerd Blum, and John Wagner.
I guess we're done. Was Don coming up? No, the clicker.
See if the clicker's up there. Thanks. So I guess we get started.
Here he comes, here he comes.
I was actually mic on. Hello, is the mic on?
Yes? Okay. My apologies. I was bringing everybody in, and Chrissy said, you're supposed to be on stage. I said, I'm after the video. And she said, the video played. So, okay. Anyway, we've added the critical infrastructure dimension to CES government because this is about government and critical infrastructure, and they're interrelated. Missions of government are directly related to critical infrastructure, and obviously many agencies protect it because it does drive the national economy in many ways. Now you're going to look and you see that we have a global airport, we have a seaport, and we have Customs and Border Protection. You're going to find out what they have in common with the video and 3 presentations. But this is about the movement of people and cargo, the technologies behind it, and I know these 3 people and what they do, and when you see the presentations that they make, all of us are going to learn some things and appreciate how complicated this is and that it works. So please, I'm not going to, you were already welcome, so I'm going to leave the stage. Thank you.
Take it away.
Okay, so have the slides up. The Port of Virginia is where I work, and the part I'm going to be talking about today relates to the movement of cargo. When I talked to this group a couple of years ago, as I was speaking, I was looking out in the audience, and I realized by the expression on people's faces that a lot of them didn't have a clue what I was talking about. And it wasn't because the people were not smart enough. It's because some of what we do is not obvious to the normal person. If you're outside the industry, I was born and raised in Detroit. I had no idea what a container was before I got into this industry about 15 years ago. So I'm going to try and approach this from the standpoint of trying to educate you a bit on what we do and why we do it and the significance of it. And hopefully those of you who already know this won't feel that I'm talking down to you. So my background, in 2007, we opened a facility in Portsmouth, Virginia. It was the 3rd automated terminal in the world. It was the result of about 4 years worth of development. The investment was about $500 million. After that finished, I went up to New York, New Jersey, and we opened up a facility there. It was about a $300 million project, and that view that you're looking at is what I looked at for 6 years out of my office. So I had a great office with a great view, and I will tell you right now, because if you want to understand the significance of cybersecurity and security in general, you have never experienced what it's like to be in front of people who have witnessed and in some cases participated with tragedy until you spent a September 11th in this harbor. And many of the people who I worked with sat there and watched the second plane fly over and crash into the World Trade Center. So they all have a very somber view of what security is about and how important it is. So we all take it very seriously. And then I left there in 2016 and went back to Virginia and built the second half of the terminal, which is the one that's called VIG on the left. And we're in the process of finishing the one called NIT. And NIT has an interesting aspect of it. It happens to share a fence line with one of the largest Navy bases in the world, which is the Norfolk Naval Station. So, we also have a concern about security because of our neighbor. Collectively, these three projects represent about $1.6 billion worth of investments. That's what the harbor in Hampton Roads looks like. There's a number of places, and you can see in the center, it's a little hard to see it, the future is Craney Island. I'm going to talk about that in a little while. So this is what we look like in 2020 when we finished the first half of the NIT project and the expansion of VIG. We will have about 4.6 million TEUs of capacity annually online. A TEU stands for a 20-foot equivalent unit, which is about 20-foot long box that's 20 feet long by 8 foot wide by about 9.5 to 10 feet tall. And about 40% of the cargo that comes in from a vessel leaves the facility by rail. It's the largest rail terminal on the East Coast. By 2065, Craney Island, which is a dredge spoils island that's in the harbor, that's the result of the Army Corps dredging the harbor. They put all the spoils in a big pile, and they're making a new facility, a new island, and that new island will be improved. And by the time this finishes, we'll be at 9.6 million TEUs of capability, 45% by volume. This will be larger than the Port of New York. In terms of marine terminal technology, there are 5 in the United States. There's 2 in Virginia, 1 in New Jersey, and 2 on the West Coast in Los Angeles. I designed the 3 that are on the East Coast, and I helped the people on the West Coast when they were bringing their technology up. This is sort of a community. Although we're competitors, we share technology openly. There was a really great talk about how the FBI is sharing technology with other people, and we believe in that. Even though we're knock-down, drag-out competitors, we're also very much in favor of helping other ports. So the question is, why would you invest $1.6 billion in this type of facility? And many of you live in the Commonwealth of Virginia, so this is a little bit about what impact we have on the Commonwealth, and one of the reasons why the Commonwealth invests in this. Just under 400,000 jobs trace their origin and their need to the work that we do in the port. It's about $92 billion worth of spending and contributes about $39 billion to the gross state product coming out of Virginia, and so there's a lot of taxes that get paid and so on. So, there's a reason to make these kinds of investments. As far as automation principles are concerned, and some of you are going to relate to some of this, first of all, we need 100% accuracy because we identify the container once and then we track it through its various moves as it comes off of a ship, through a holding phase, through an examination phase, and then makes its way out either over a rail, over on a barge to go up to Baltimore or Philadelphia, or out on a rail to go to the Midwest. So we have to know 100% with 100% accuracy every single container we handle. And just for an example, we handle between 40 and 50,000 containers a week. And so there's a lot happening here. And the things that come there are your big screen TVs and your iPhones and your iPads and probably almost everything you rely on to think you have a good quality of life. So The validation of these containers is important to make sure we prevent loss and and avoid increased cost upon the entry and exit of containers. One container, for example, because we're located near the military, we do an awful lot of military moves. And when a person's deploying overseas, they want to make sure that their home and their bicycles and everything don't end up, in the Middle East instead of in Europe. And we have to make sure that that happens properly. So. The full automation terminals were semi-automated. The full automation terminals is a nuance, but it implies a lower operating cost because there's a few less people involved and lower productivity, and that's today. Semi-automated, which we are, means that we have a slightly higher operating cost because we employ a few more people, but the productivity is higher. Finally, the reliability of computer systems is critical. If the computer systems aren't working, then the cargo doesn't come off the ship. And it's just that simple. It doesn't get on the ship. And suddenly Walmart doesn't have something on their shelf for you to buy for your kids for Christmas. Management of terminal truck traffic flows is necessary. And since everybody talks about China, I'm going to show you a slide at the end that you're going to be thankful that you don't live there. Skill level demands for operating staff is much higher. That's a key factor here. People have to know how to use technology or they can't be effective working with it. The segregation of people and robotic machinery results in a very secure facility. People can't walk up to the containers here like they can in some of the more conventional terminals that are around. So there's no hands touching terminal containers unless they're pulled out of the facility, out of a secure area, placed on a truck, and they exit the facility. And the last one is important. Cybersecurity concerns are much, much, much greater in our facility because of the dependency on technology. So let's talk quickly about cybersecurity since everybody's been worried about it in the last couple of days as I've watched things. We give this a very high priority. We have money to spend for staffing it and for doing threat monitoring 24/7 with a professional service that looks at patterns within our network to make sure that things are working as expected and there's no unusual traffic. We have contracts for remediation if we have a problem. We do ongoing cybersecurity assessments, phishing penetration testing. I will tell you, I'm not sure how many of you have done a real penetration test, but we have done them in a couple of the terminals I've worked at, and I highly advise you to do a real honest-to-goodness test and not do something that's just a bunch of people sitting in a room talking about what they think cybersecurity is. We had a staff of 5 people spend 12 weeks assaulting our facility, and the results were very eye-opening. We have a cybersecurity oversight committee that includes some of the senior-most people in the company, as well as representatives from every major department. It reports directly to the CEO with briefings directly to the board of directors. We have our network partitioned so that there's intrinsic separation, air gaps between critical systems. And one of the things that really surprised our cybersecurity assessment people, we have an extensive effort around how to recover from an event. And they were shocked at the level of focus that we have on that aspect. I'm talking about physically completely separate, not connected to the network, totally redundant computer systems that have backups off the shelf, air gap for over 12 weeks that we can get back to where we need to be. One of the technologies that I've shown before is optical character recognition. We use it all over the place. And this is a matter of a container driving through a portal that has a bunch of cameras that takes pictures and can identify the container number with high accuracy. One of the things that I wanted to point out here, though, is not only does it get the container number, but you can see a picture here of the driver. So if there's been an event, when you're in a port of New York, New Jersey, the New York Port Authority takes a lot of focus on making sure that we know who's going where and what they were doing. So the fact that we could show up on a particular load and find out exactly not only what truck took that out, but what the guy driving the truck looked like for up to a year ago was a big deal. We have a terminal operating system that does EDI processing, AI-based decision-making, and we think is focused on a collaborative approach for the future that allows us to deal with people like Amazon, Walmart, Wayfair, and those kinds of people who are very interested in data. Terminal automation of the future, we think, is going to be autonomous vehicles on and off the facility, and AI and machine learning as an approach that's different from the old approach, which was just optimization equations. Autonomous vehicles, we have an active program in place to start to use them. We're going to do a study probably next year in how we would use them between the terminal and the local warehouses. It's something that we think is the future, and we're the highest technology port available that can actually do the development. We think it's going to happen in a high-tech port versus a low-tech. See if I can get through these a little quicker. Learning versus optimization. The old approach was equations that tried to reduce everything in the world to a series of equations. That doesn't always work. We found that that has limited practical use. Instead, we're looking at more use of automated intelligence, and in fact, we'll start a pilot here that the development of which starts before the end of this month and will deploy before the middle of the year to use artificial intelligence to organize the containers in the yard to improve the ability to deliver containers to the over-the-road trucks. This is the picture I wanted to tell you. That's a traffic jam in China going into one of their terminals. The traffic jam lasted for 10 days. And so you get an idea of what it looks like when a container terminal needs to have cargo moved and there's not an effective way to do it. So we feel we have automation as the best approach for truck reservations, for cell phone integration so that the drivers can be updated as they're on the terminal what they need to do, in order to handle truck fleet GPS so that the trucking companies know if their driver's within range and whether they've left and are on their way to a warehouse. One of the things that would be great to see developed, and at some point we may see it, is an electronic RFID seal where we would be able to seal the container with an RFID tag that was knowledgeable about the contents. That's been talked about for 15 years and no one's been able to do anything about it. And then total supply data chain, supply chain data sharing. I mentioned yesterday during a roundtable, if you've got a company like Amazon that's doing a couple $100 billion a year in revenue, and you manage to take one day out of their logistics chain because you provide them the information so that they can plan more quickly and have a tighter supply chain, you save them billions of dollars in cost. And finally, my boss used to show this. We think that evolution is important. If you fail to adopt, then the world is littered with the remains of the people who didn't, or the entities that didn't.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today and share with you what we are doing at Royal Schiphol Group. Can we have the slides here as well? Otherwise, we have to all the time switch. Thank you. So you might actually know Schiphol. Schiphol as Amsterdam Airport, but we are more than that. We also run 3 regional airports, but we also have a number of international activities. Most notable for you, we run Terminal 4 JFK for over 20 years now. We were in fact the very first private run airport in the US. Over 20 million travelers, offering more than 12,000 jobs. How do we look at an airport? We do not see an airport as just a utility. We see it as a place of value. It's the first impression to your country or to your city. We see as our mission to connect your world, and we want that connection to be meaningful. And in these days we live in, as we could also experience here at CES, we are convinced that innovation is key to make that connection. And if you want to get value out of that innovation, being part of a critical infrastructure, you will need to collaborate. Those will be the 2 key words, innovation and collaboration, throughout my presentation. But before going further into numbers, let's get a bit of the sense that Schiphol brings in showing the movie that we showed last Monday at our New Year's reception, looking back at 2019. No, it's the other one.
More and more people come to Schiphol to fly or for business. This offers opportunities and challenges for all our stakeholders. To make it easy for them to meet their objectives, we aim to provide the most valuable IT solutions that will support the further development of our airport. To our passengers, we offer a seamless journey through personal assistance.
This was a spoiler, another one, for the IT strategy that's about to come. The 2019 movie will be online available if you go to Schiphol. There it is.
Lot 1 en 2 best vervolging, via Raman 5 toestaan.
Een van de grootste vliegtuigtransportopdrachten die we ooit gedaan hebben in Nederland.
Wij gaan voor goud!
Tijdens al deze werkzaamheden blijft de volledige luchthaven gewoon operationeel.
Schiphol zijn te klaar om te rennen!
Goedemiddag beste buren, van harte welkom op de Zwanenbergbaan.
Vleugels, wat een wijdte!
So that was the footage that I mentioned that I wanted to show you. After looking at the footage, let's look at the numbers. 500,000 flight movements to 333 destinations, making us the third best connected airport in the world. 72 million passengers, 1.6 million tons of cargo. For our country, that actually means 67 direct jobs. But if you look at the full chain, we're talking 300,000. So that really is vital infrastructure, but a key meaning for our country. And it's also a gate to Europe. If we look at the transfer passenger, we rank second after Frankfurt of people that actually come into Amsterdam and travel onwards. That's before London and Paris. And then zooming in at our collaboration, we have 20 direct connections to the US, 6 airlines being the major international hub for Delta. That is over 300 weekly flights, 85,000 seats, and more than 5.5 million passengers per year. But then let's look in the future, because that's what CES is all about. We feel with our mission to connect your world, we actually want to run the world's most sustainable and high-quality airports. And those qualities come in 3 qualities in our eyes. Quality of network, quality of life, quality of service, built on safety and on reduced organization, on people. And especially in quality of service, that's where technology and data will make the difference. Because if we zoom in on that, you see that that ranges from your smart real estate to your personalized experience for your passenger, from your seamless flow to your new business models, and my personal favorite, an autonomous airport, showing how much technology can actually mean to an airport. But long-term vision requires action today. So my role is being end responsible for the IT. What should we now be doing? So let's look at a movie and see which one comes up now.
More and more people come to Schiphol to fly or for business. This offers opportunities and challenges for all our stakeholders. To make it easy for them to meet their objectives, we aim to provide the most valuable IT solutions that will support the further development of our airport. To our passengers, we offer a seamless journey through personal assistance and intuitive technology. For and with the airlines, we will work on easy solutions to provide smooth airport operations. To achieve this aim, data is vital. Airport processes require everybody involved to work from one common picture of the airport. By developing smart buildings and creating a connected area, we contribute to Schiphol's strategy to be a competitive marketplace. For all colleagues, we aim to simplify their work through technology, offering tools as well as a workplace that fosters collaboration and success. To make it easy for all stakeholders, we have to make IT easy. Easy IT means reliable IT, that is, always working, resilient against cyber threats, and as simple as possible so all airport processes can rely on IT 24/7. Easy IT also means promoting agility into our infrastructure so all colleagues can operate it themselves and focus on continuous improvement. Our ambitions will be realized by an IT team that can work efficiently in different settings, together with colleagues from other fields and supported by complementary partners. Our IT organization is therefore shaped by teams consisting of the very best IT employees, in which every individual can take initiative and ownership, always keeping the wishes and objectives of their customers in mind. These teams are guided, facilitated, and inspired by leadership that leads by example and gives and receives feedback to create a continuous learning environment. With our IT solutions, the underlying infrastructure and organization, we make things easy for all the stakeholders of Schiphol, supporting today's and tomorrow's development.
So, addressed in the movie were the three things that you should always find back in your IT strategy. What will you be offering to the end user? How will you make sure that those solutions will run smoothly through your enabling technology, your infrastructure, and how will you actually create success for and with your people? Looking at the solutions, think value. Airlines want efficiency, on-time performance. Passengers want experience. Look at the Net Promoter Score. Employees want engagement. And the local residents, our impact on them we can measure in reputation. Giving you a few examples, we were the very first airport in the world with CT scans. Great cooperation with a US company. CT scans will let you have your laptop and your liquids in your bag. The information zones that you saw in the movie, we aim by the end of this year to have all kind of support in 100 languages, enabling technology. You saw in the movie the fully automated passenger bridge, key in the processes of the airport. We are the very first airport in the world to have them in a co-development. And on the air side, more and more we actually, to reduce our footprint, use electricity-driven vehicles. And we know that the data of what's happening at an airport, the operational data, is valuable to many parties. So we want to disclose that in a control and secure manner, and we have therefore set an API platform. Again, we at Schiphol now have the largest API platform of any airport in the world. But neither one of those solutions will bring any value if you don't pay proper attention to your infrastructure. We have been hearing about the 5G times that are ahead of us. Is your connectivity, is your network ready to facilitate that? You have to invest in advance. There's plenty ways to actually make your facility smart. Think about sensoring. We were the first airport to have a private LoRa network installed all across our airport, and addressed a number of times in previous roundtables and keynotes. If you're part of the vital infrastructure and geopolitical tensions will arise, you will be a target. So you have to be ready and you have to realize that you deal with very strong threat actors. Everything I mentioned so far is work. And work is to a large extent done by people. So if you want to be successful, think through on what you can do with your people, both your workforce as well as your leadership teams. Already shown in the movie, we really want all of our employees to think client first, to know what they are doing, what value that is adding. And we want everybody to realize what we also discussed in our roundtable yesterday, that their work will continuously change. So we really have to change the adaptivity of your people. What does that mean then for us as technology leaders? It actually means empowerment. I love Steve Jobs' quote, "Don't hire smart people and tell them what to do. Hire smart people so they can tell you what to do." Then you actually get to a servant way of leadership. The picture on the right, I carry it on my working PC as a statement, so in every meeting you can see it, but also as a personal reminder for myself. Empowerment requires transparency because it is a necessity that your people have to know the direction. What I did, and I found it scary at the beginning, but it has turned out to be very useful, my management team meetings, anybody can join. It's transparent. Agenda is online and everybody is welcome. Make sure your people will know the direction. And have we then covered it all? Having the right mindset with your workforce and your leadership, you are still not there. Because a lot of the value that we are providing as critical infrastructure providers will require the collaboration with others. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's time, to really be successful in the vital infrastructure, innovation and collaboration are a complete necessity. And we at Schiphol look forward to continue our cooperation. Thank you.
John Wagner with Customs and Border Protection. And that's a great lead-in to exactly what I'm going to talk about today, about how we're changing and transforming international air travel. But if we could show the video clip real quick.
Which video?
And your flight is one of the first departures using facial recognition technology from curb to gate.
At the busiest airport in the world, Terminal F check-in is now as simple as look, smile, and click.
Found you real fast.
Delta's outbound international passengers no longer required to scan their passports or carry a ticket.
It's pretty simple. You walk up to the kiosk, tap facial recognition, the camera recognizes your face from your passport photo already on file and checks you in. When you check a bag, no need for a passport or a ticket. The camera recognizes your face again. By early next year, your face will be your boarding pass for TSA. Same process for boarding a flight. Facial recognition, and I'm on the plane.
Nobody wants to stand in line any extra time, so anything that's going to speed it up is going to be great.
Homeland Security already uses the cameras for international passengers scanning their faces.
How far apart your eyes, your ears, your chin, your mouth.
Boasting 98% accuracy. Now, Delta is bringing facial recognition to the entire check-in process.
You don't have to fumble for your ID, wait for somebody to read it, and it saves you wait times at the airport.
Next, Delta's international Detroit flights, and maybe domestic flights within 2 years. But in Atlanta,
Super easy.
the future is here.
So that's really it. I mean, we are embarking on the future right now. But let me back up and talk about how we got here. And some of the things we went through to get to this, and to look at the partnerships and the trust that we're building with the stakeholders to deliver this, and some of the mistakes, quite frankly, we've made over the years trying to do things in isolation and trying to do things in that, sort of typical government stovepiped approach. But a lot of this stems from requirements that came out of the 9/11 Commission. There was a sense that we needed to have biometric confirmation of all the visitors to the United States when they came in, and biometric confirmation that they departed. Implementing it for arriving passengers was pretty easy because when you come off the plane, you walk down that long corridor, you come out into the arrivals hall and you see a CBP officer and get your passport stamped and you're done. But on international departures, we don't have departure controls like a lot of countries do. You know, like in Europe, you go before the immigration officer and you get your passport stamped to depart the country. We didn't design our transportation system, we didn't design our airports like that. CBP, we're certainly not staffed or resourced to be able to do that and to reconstruct every airport and every international journey out there. So what you have at an airport is you have international departing flights commingling with domestic flights. So how do you inject a biometric collection in the middle of that? You know, everybody here has traveled, so you know what the congestion and anxiety and complexity of what your airport journey looks like today already. Now to infuse a new biometric collection requirement, a new gauntlet of requirements for only a segment of the people at that airport, how do you do that? We tried it over the years, putting self-service kiosks. You know, they worked if people could find them, if people could figure out how to use them, if people knew who was supposed to use it. You know, there was some discussion just making the airlines do it as part of check-in or making TSA do it when you go through screening. But there really wasn't a feasible approach to realistically do this without creating exorbitant costs and potential for gridlock at the airports that are already congested. And if you look at international air travel, you know, we've seen just tremendous growth in the last few years, 4, 5, 6%, you know, over the last 7 or 8 years. And it continues to grow today. So, you know, at some point, you know, all your independent operations at the airport, right, at some point, we're just going to hit gridlock. And we won't be able to get more people through these systems unless we step back and look to collaborate and try to rebuild the efficiency into this process. So Congress directed Customs and Border Protection to take over this biometric exit requirement a couple years ago. So me and my team, you know, took a fresh look at things and we looked at all of the national security related tools we had built for doing the vetting and the background checks of arriving and departing passengers, all of the vetting resources and tools and access to information that the airlines were providing us, travelers were already providing us. And rather than create something completely new, you know, how do we start with what we have already today? And could we simply take a lot of the things we already had today and string them together a little differently, and could a solution be in there? And that's what we found. We already had everybody's picture on file. If you're a US citizen and you've got a US passport, you provided a photograph to the government for the purposes of international travel. Well, we have a copy of that database, right, to help validate the passports and help validate who the true bearer is when it's presented at the airport. There's already requirements to present your airport for international travel, right? Foreign nationals that come in, we collect the fingerprints and the photograph already. So if we've got all this data, what really is the true value of the biometric on departure? And previous efforts looked at, okay, well, you have to take fingerprints because that's the biometric we do, and then you have to run live queries against it. And I'm like, yeah, but our group over here has already done all that work. We've already pre-vetted and pre-analyzed everybody flying out of the US, so why not just link these together? And could the biometric really just be used as the pointer to the data we already have and the data we were already going to use, right? And could we build a platform, you know, looking at facial recognition, because it's quick, it's easy, it's intuitive, everybody knows how to take a picture. People like standing in front of a camera and seeing their face, and they instinctively smile. Their picture's taken, right? People are used to it, you know. Everybody knows how to do that. And that's one of the things when you look at, you know, the different biometric technologies out there, I didn't want to have to retrain every passenger on how to engage with a piece of equipment, right? So I needed something very simple and very intuitive. And the footprint, right? We can't have this massive footprint with this big, you know, expensive equipment. So was there a simple solution? And that's what we saw with facial recognition, that you could just put a camera. And, you know, like in the news clip, we partnered with Delta first, and we set this up on one of their flights. We said, hey, if we can pre-position all the people flying on that plane and their photographs into our own gallery, could we just take a picture as people boarding the plane and match it against the gallery and confirm who people are? And what we found is we can. It's very quick and it's very easy. You know, it takes about 2 to 3 seconds from when somebody stands in front of the camera till they get confirmation of who they are, right? we're matching at 98, 99% accuracy. So what we did is we leveraged, the airline tells us who's going to be on board a plane. We leveraged the fact that we already have everybody's picture from their travel documents. We pre-assemble a gallery of pictures of who's on a particular flight, and then we work with the airlines and the airport authorities to put a camera at the boarding gate, so when it's your turn to board, rather than presenting your passport to a gate agent, and rather than presenting your boarding pass to the gate agent, it's as simple as walking up and smiling for the camera. And it takes, again, 2 to 3 seconds, and you can board the plane. So what happens in that 2 to 3 seconds, your picture is taken, it's sent to CBP. We position the gallery in the cloud. The photos are all templatized at that point. It matches against who's on the flight, and a message goes back to the airline that the person can board. It then writes into the departure control systems to keep track of who's on board the plane and in what seat, and the message comes back to CBP. We record the biometric departure. If you're a US citizen, we throw the new photo away. We don't need it because we have your passport photo. If you're a foreign national, this serves to meet the congressional mandate for the biometric collection, and that data goes over to a DHS database and it's stored to maintain that record. But what we're finding, okay, we built this for our purpose, and if the data's there, where else could we use it within the airport? Could we open up this sort of architecture? You know, could we build a platform, an ecosystem that other entities within that airport could use? You know, you think about how many different times do you show your passport when you're going through the airport? And I think the news clip covered it. You know, baggage check, TSA, boarding the plane. There's potential for the duty-free store, potential for, you know, the airport lounges. Privacy considerations we absolutely have to address before we expand to some of these other environments. But you think about how many different times you got to open your passport and show it to somebody just to get onto the plane. Could all that be replaced with just a simple camera? And these cameras don't have to be these big fancy things. You know, we have Dulles Airport just took a standard iPad out of the box and bolted that to the desk, and the camera in the iPad, you know, takes the picture. But you could replace every transaction with something simple like that, right? Because we all hate getting stuck behind the guy in line who forgot where he put his passport, and they finally find their phone and they got to unlock it, and then it goes dead again, right? What did I do with my ID? Where did it go? My boarding pass, right? You can't forget your face, right? You can't leave your face in the bathroom, you know? So it just makes it a simple, easy, you know, people smiling when they're boarding the plane again. When was the last time you ever saw that, right? Boarding the plane is miserable. Everybody's jammed up together. You want to get in to get your overhead space, right, and get in your seat. And, you know, this changes the dynamics and the atmosphere of what boarding the plane is like. People are smiling because they're having their picture taken. They're fixing their hair. They're occupied doing something different. So the airlines, you know, we're getting a lot of great support from them and the airport authorities that, hey, we can move people more efficiently. We can do it a lot, you know, with a better sort of passenger atmosphere, a better passenger experience. And guess what? We're taking care of these security requirements unbeknownst to anyone. And we're solving a very complicated security requirement, very complex one, by making the problem bigger and focusing on the traveler experience aspect of this, because that could bring in the stakeholders and the partnerships, right, where we could address a lot of different problems with a security solution, right? And when we look for the collaboration part on this, say, okay, you know, we look at, we're a security agency, but we've also got facilitation responsibilities, right? I got to move cargo and I got to move people. It's got to come in and get out of the country, right? We have a responsibility to do that securely, but also efficiently, right? So this platform that we've built and we've opened up that architecture to our partners is allowing them to improve their own business models. You know, Lufthansa put out a press release a year or so ago. They're boarding the A380 plane at LAX in half the time. It takes about 20 minutes to get 450 people on board that plane. It was taking 40-something minutes before. Right? I've got Emirates Airlines using it overseas to board the plane as it comes here. Right? Because once the person checks in overseas, their photo's sitting in the gallery because we've got it and it's available at that point in time. Because Emirates has to tell us who's going to be on the plane before they take off. So they can actually use it to board that plane overseas and when it comes here. And we've got biometric validation of who actually is on board that plane. Because remember, all the checks that we've done, all the national security related checks, are all based off biographical information principally. But now you've got a biometric lock on who is actually presenting that information. So the security benefits are great. All the traveler knows is, hey, that was really easy to do. So I'll pause there. I'll leave some time for questions of any of us. But again, thank you for your time.
We do have time for a question. The biometric, and John, I'd like to ask you this question. Some of us are clear, which, by the way, was really good, but now when it's really crowded, it's almost as crowded as TSA PreCheck. This looks like, what's the future of clear in this?
I think, you know, we're working with a lot of different technology vendors and companies, and I think we're letting the airports and the airlines choose who their business partners are to deliver the camera infrastructure and to deliver the, you know, the technology piece of that. And I think Clear is involved in some of those discussions about if they are a service provider to do this. But one thing I did fail to mention is there's any global entry members in the audience, right? Best program in government, right?
Yes.
We are switching that over to facial recognition, and you'll no longer have to fumble with your passport and your fingerprints at the kiosk. You'll walk up, take a picture, and walk out the door.
Wow, interesting. Thank you. Is there a question? If someone can walk up, I can't see through the lights. If you have a question, please ask it, because I don't want to dominate it. Go ahead. All right, right in front of me. All right, go. I told you.
Yes, actually, it's two questions, so I'm breaking the rules already. One is on facial recognition and probably an inappropriate terminology, but facial disfigurations or changes in the face that don't follow the typical triangle associated with that. And the second thing is on protecting fingerprints. I can get another social security number. I cannot get another set of fingerprints without torture. So what have been some of the approaches to the facial configuration being very different from what's typical, and how do you protect biometrics because we can't get a new set?
Sure. So, you know, we've seen with the advances in the algorithms and what we've seen, and NIST just put out a report about racial biases if you're not careful on how you to build these systems. But also buried in that report was if you have a high quality camera, a high quality image, the correct lighting, you're comparing it as a good base sample of photographs using a very strong algorithm, you can minimize or eliminate a lot of what are known as biases or error rates or demographical error rates. And you will absolutely minimize the chance for a false positive that you match to someone else. In our case, what we're seeing is we're more likely not to match someone in our gallery. But if you think the chances of you looking like someone else on the flight, because we're just lining up all the photos and say, hey, where's this person? Oh, there they are. Your picture's in that gallery. We're not trying to make you match against like a random set of mugshots, which is if you dial down the specificity, you can do, right? But if I'm just lining you up against other people on your flight, of which one of them is you, that's why we're getting such high accuracy rates on that. Now, with the facial changes, if you don't look like the picture in your passport, we're probably going to have questions anyway. So if an algorithm points that out to us, that might lead to the additional questioning. Let me see your paper document, right? Let me see what other forms of ID you have. You know, we see it with some countries where they like to have glamour shots done for their passport photographs. Right? And if you airbrush the cheeks and the chin and the, you know, some of the dimensions of the face, you struggle to match. But somebody looking at that too should also say, wait, this doesn't look like you. Your chin's different and your eyes, you know. Protecting the data, critically important, right? What we're using is we have the passport database. It's in our internal system. We templatize the photos so they just become like a mathematical equation. Someone here, I'm sure, can explain it a lot better than me. The technicians over here. Niall, where are you? That is what gets put into the cloud. When the picture comes in from the airline, it's templatized and then matched. There's no personal data going back and forth. It's just, if someone were to hack it, they would just see a collection of either photographs or hashed information.
Question over here. Can you speak a little bit about the entry procedures for actually coming in on a ship, which is a much more likely place for like a terrorist or an adversary to come in? as opposed to the airport due to the security that you just mentioned. Can you speak about how you work together with the port side to clear people that come in off cargo ships, that come in off, giant containers? And then also, can you speak to some of the concerns about Chinese equipment in that infrastructure, such as Huawei and equipment in, and taking photographs or cameras or that type of stuff?
Sure, we're using the same technology we're using with the cruise lines to get people on and off the ship. The cruise lines are already using a lot of the technology on board, so we're partnered with them to make the getting on board and off the ship a lot quicker, a lot easier, and more securely. Now, with the cargo crews on some of the commercial vessels, there's potential to also use a tool like this, maybe a portable device where I could just take out the phone and take a picture as we're inspecting the crew. And then the cargo itself, we do a lot of work with advanced information, all the vetting and link analysis of all the information that pertains to that shipment, and this is before it's even put on board the ship overseas. We're looking at importers, exporters, manufacturers, who it's being sold to, because there's a whole host of threats we're looking at, from the big bomb-in-the-box scenario to narcotics, to prohibited merchandise, counterfeit merchandise, unmanifested merchandise, all different kinds of things. So we've got to have a very accurate description of what's in there, who's importing it, who purchased it, where it's manufactured, and how all these things are related. We also have officers overseas at 50 or 60 different seaports, CBP officers, working with the host customs authorities, including in the Netherlands, I think was the first place we actually set up after September 11th, to address any national security risks on board in that cargo before it's actually placed on board the ship. And we can do that through all the advanced information we get. And if there's anything you want to add to.
Just one quick thing. A typical container ship has a crew of about 18 people. And the crew is documented by the shipping line before the vessel sails, and customs boards the ship before it's allowed to discharge any cargo. And the people who are leaving the ship with some specific intent are all vetted in advance. We transport them from the ship outside, and we bring them back and make sure they get on the ship. So it's not like you're on the good ship Lollipop or something and everybody just gets to do a thing. Very controlled.
I want to thank our panel, and I want everyone to appreciate that when it comes to innovation in the movement of cargo and people, we really do have 3 people here who are recognized globally as best in class. So thank all of you for being here and for participating in this. And they'll be at lunch and throughout the program for you to talk to, ask questions to. But thank you for your participation.